Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to week 9 of PR2, the week of the 24th of April. This is a pre-recorded session, so you're going to actually go through this recording in class tomorrow, which is Tuesday the 25th. So between 10:30 and up until 12 o'clock, you are going to be going through this video and working through the material. And also, if you've got a gap, then you need to go through your FA2. You can have a discussion and a chat with some of your colleagues, and we'll go through that just now. So session 2 is going to be live tomorrow. So at 12:10, please make sure that you log on Teams live, because our classes are virtual tomorrow. That is the 25th of April. So just in terms of a quick recap and some of the things that we discussed in class on campus the week of the 8th, right, was we started to integrate the new textbook, which is Connect for Writing for Online Audiences, into the actual learnings. We're going to quickly go through the industrial revolutions, and we're going to recap in terms of what we needed to cover there, because there was a little bit of a delay last week because of the formative assessment 2, and there were some challenges around that which we dealt with in class. So in terms of the second textbook, please note that it is the one that is Connect, Writing for Online Audiences. Please make sure that when you online or whether you are on campus in class, that you have both textbooks in front of you, because we need to refer to both of them. The other one is the handbook, which is the one, the orange one with the bees and the hives and stuff on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly recap in terms of the formative assessment, which is extremely important, and we'll go through some of the logistics around that in terms of. So I am now sharing my screen. So here is the situation. Last week, only 4 of the 8 students attended campus, which was face-to-face classes, and that was disappointing because it was important for everybody to be in class. Now, the reason it's good that this is recorded as well, so you can make a note of it. Please look at your timetable and have an understanding every week whether we are having Teams classes or we're having face-to-face classes. Now, last week we had face-to-face classes. This week we are having online classes. The only exception is the first part of the lecture is going to be recorded, and the second part I'm going to join in live on the 25th of April tomorrow. At 12:10, you need to be logged in for the session live. Now, the reason that I need to emphasize this is because remember this last week was the week that we briefed in the formative assessment. So your formative assessment, the second one, that you needed to be in class for that, because you have completely missed the briefing, face-to-face briefing. Now, I need to emphasize something extremely important, and you may have seen it already on WhatsApp. Formative assessment 2 is a syndicate assignment. Syndicate means that you are paired with one of your colleagues in class, and you will need to build a very, very good working or relationship, a working relationship, in terms of ensuring that your submission, that you both equally put in the work, right? And then when it is submitted, that on your cover page that you will find on Core Campus, it gives you a section where it gives you participation percentage. So between the two students, you're both going to put your names on to that front page, and you're going to discuss in terms of your contribution. I have done a lot of work in terms of setting up the WhatsApp groups. Now on Cole Campus, it has been uploaded in terms of who is in which syndicate. I have taken it a step further and made life very easy for you. I've literally created the WhatsApp syndicate groups already, and I've added all of the students that need to be part of that. So we have, just to make it clear, we have 4 syndicates, right, with 2 students each. Now, those students that were not there last week, you have missed out completely critical information. Yes, you will find the briefing document online. However, there's information that we discussed at length in class in order for everyone to understand. Now, this particular assessment, and I'm going to go through it briefly because unfortunately I need to cover this week in terms of the material, and I need to recap the revolutions from the previous week that you guys need to have a good understanding. So if you're looking at the screen, once again, I reiterate, this is a syndicate assignment. Please do not expect to put in like 5, you put in 10% of the work and your syndicate member has put in 90% of the work. The expectation should not be that you, next to your name on the cover page, that it's going to reflect 100%. What you do need to do, both syndicate members are going to be uploading the exact same assignment onto Cole Campus as if it was an individual. However, 2 syndicate members will have the exact same assignment uploaded to Cole Campus, right? Please do not change anything and one syndicate member have a different document compared to the other. Then we will have to have a sidebar discussion in terms of that. So both syndicate members that are uploading the document, it needs to be identical. Please note that also for your formative assessment cover page, on Cole Campus, there is a template that you merely download and you make use of that as your cover page. It is very important to include that cover page because it makes provision for the syndicate participation percentage and the syndicate members' names, right? So you need to have a proper table of contents. Remember, and this is something that I've stressed last week, Harvard referencing, I think students may be still struggling with it. I've indicated that on Cole Campus under modules, there is Harvard referencing. Please go through, download the document, and you would need to use what we call in-text referencing, and the full referencing needs to be at the bottom. The brief and the scope, the case study that you are going to be working on is Kick Sportswear, and you need to come up. You will see it clearly indicates your syndicate group is required to. Now, chapter 11 of the handbook, the orange one with the bees on it, has the PRISA 7-step model. There are students who have missed that class. There are some students who attended class yesterday who have missed that specific class. And secondly, you need to be able to write a press release. Now, remember when we say 450 to 500 words, that is excluding the heading, excluding your contact details at the bottom. It's strictly the body of the email. So basically, you are going to be required to create a 6-month public relation campaign commencing 1st July 2023 and ending on 31 December 2023. Now, there are a number of things, and you will find this online, right? As I said, I'm not going to go through every single one because this has been covered last week. So remember, the 7 steps of the PRISA 7-step plan is simply you need to do the situational analysis, step 1. Step 2 is writing objectives in a SMART format. Please ensure that it's written in a SMART format in order to get good marks for that. Then thirdly, we talk of stakeholders. How do we identify stakeholders? There's a common theme that a lot of students, and this we picked up during formative assessment 1, is that your stakeholders, in some instances, if it's an event, like it was the Galaxy K Day, your competitor is not a stakeholder for that specific event. Now, when you do stakeholder mapping, your stakeholders need to be specific to that campaign. It's a not one size fits all, right? It is a case where you've got to identify, look at the case study and look at the relevant stakeholders that need to be included. Okay, then the messaging, please go and revise what editorial angles are. And because that has been covered in class before, you need to get that right. Then your activities, you need to have a list of what kinds of activities. Remember, media and social media is not the same thing. You have traditional media, which is your print, online, and broadcast, and then social media is on its own. Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. Then you need to be able to do a budget. Please remember, when you're doing the budget, where it has costs on the right-hand side, you do not need to put in figures. You can put the X's, right, and in places of the amounts. And I want to refer you specifically to, when I get to chapter 11, under budgeting, you will find on page 109, 110, 111, 112. So what I want to see is the structure and format and what you have included in those specific sections. Please break them down in the sections with proper headings and then you use that. So the amounts, you don't have to put amounts, you can put an R and an X. But what we're looking at more specifically is the items on the left where it says travel accommodation, to see that you understand the budget well enough in terms of the line items that need to go in. The last step is your monitoring and evaluation. You need to get that done well. Do not leave your assignment until the last minute. So last week, when we had classes Tuesday and Wednesday, one of the things I said to everyone, the 4 students that were in class, is that you have a month and literally 2 weeks when this assessment is due. So that is not a lot of time, guys. It is not a lot of time. So you need to be very cognizant of the fact that you need to actually just work quite fast, because there is a lot of information that you need to actually cover. Now, I have created WhatsApp groups, and the WhatsApp groups, so Syndicate 1 has 2 members. The same goes for Syndicate 2, Syndicate 3, Syndicate 4. Now, any communication around the assignment, the formative assessment 2, between the 2 members needs to be done via that WhatsApp channel, not any other platform. So if you are meeting face to face, that's fine, but I need to check in terms of who is participating, who is communicating, who's not communicating. There are some groups that have not started even communicating. You may not know everyone, your partner that you've been paired with. So please be mindful of that you need to reach out. Whoever wants to start reaching out between the 2, please do so and get the conversation going, because this is a lot of work. It's not as simple as it looks. We are going to step up the pace. Formative assessment 1 was much less work, This you're going to have to invest in terms of a lot of work. So this is the advice that I've given to the students that were in class last week. The very first thing is to print out the briefing document that is on Cole campus, right? Secondly, please go and read and familiarize yourself with chapter 11, which has the precise 7 steps. You need to conduct research on kick sportswear before you even touch the assignment. Because if you are not well versed with the precise 7 step, you are going to find it very, very challenging in terms of getting a good mark for that assessment. Now, just touching on what we spoke about last week, which we didn't completely finish, and I'm going to cover it quickly, is the industrial revolutions. Remember, I've asked those who were in class, who attended class, is that we have currently 5 different industrial revolutions that have been mentioned in the public domain, right? Now, the way we interact and engage has changed drastically, and that has been accelerated, right? When the COVID-19 pandemic entered our shores in South Africa and around the world, what happened is the pace of technology was accelerated. Now, there's these revolutions. So you have the first industrial revolution up to the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. What is interesting is, and very important for you to know, is that you need to understand what each of the industrial revolutions entail, and more specifically, the fourth industrial revolution and the fifth. Because with each industrial revolution, that brings through it innovation, technology, right? So innovative technologies, and what it does is it disrupts the way we work, the way we live. So if you look at COVID-19 pandemic, when we had the hard lockdowns, what we did is our movement out of our homes was limited. So we ordered things online, like if you look at Checker 6060, your groceries can be delivered to your door if you order through an app, okay? Even the way we shopped, the e-commerce platforms, we used them exponentially. For those who were on campus or in the working environment, what had happened? Lecturing took place virtually. You couldn't be face-to-face on campus. Similarly, with work, there's MS Teams, there's Zoom, there's so many other platforms that you can make use of in terms of engaging with the outside world and being able to adapt. So what happened? Our lives were disrupted completely. Now, when you look at the first industrial revolution, this was back in the 1700s and 1800s. Now, the reason there's a steam train there is because that is when the steam train was actually introduced as a way of harnessing steam to power mechanization. So that was the innovation. Now, remember, with innovation, there comes challenges. So traditional workers may have lost their jobs due to mechanization, and some started their own cottage industries. So remember, it's disrupting, and at the same time, what people are going to have to do is they're going to have to, they need to reinvent almost themselves, because if you lose your job, you need to find another job that is going to be, you're going to be able to do. Then in the terms of the second industrial revolution, that was between the 1800s to 1900s, and this is known as the technological revolution, and that had steam power, electrification, motorization, automation. Now, automation, if you look at a production line, meaning that if you go into a company that manufactures products, right, there is an assembly line for when chocolates are put into a box by machinery, and then it needs to be sealed and then checked by someone on that manufacturing line. Development of telegraph systems, rail networks, gas and water supply and sewage systems. So these innovations allowed people and ideas to move in unprecedented volumes, leading to a new wave of globalization. One of the examples is the mass production of Henry Ford's Model T car, which was manufactured by means of an innovated assembly line. So although it may not have been fully machine automated, there was, like in the picture on the left, you will see there's a production line and there are some human resources. Today, perhaps there's very little intervention in terms of the human element, and it's more machine automation. The third industrial revolution was the mid-1900s onwards. That was known as the digital revolution. It marked the beginning of what we call the information age, right? So this is when things like your microprocessors, etc., and your communication technology came into play. Computer networks, personal computers, the internet. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. These birds, they choose the right time to start making a noise when I'm recording. Digital cameras, smartphones, all of those things were introduced in the third industrial revolution. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution, we are currently in the fourth, in between the fifth industrial revolution, where there's a dissemination and use of technology, smartphones, automated things. There's just so many things. And underpinned in this industrial revolution is the technology that we are using. If you look at ChatGPT that was launched towards the end of last year, where you can actually make use of this to create a speech. You simply ask it and it will produce something for you from the database. There is just so many different kinds of technology. If you look at mobile apps, you have your smartphones or your devices that you can actually purchase something from Takealot or Amazon by simply downloading the mobile app, and you're good to go. The same with Checker 6060. It is not, Checker 6060, the mobile app, is not completely compatible with all phones. It has to be a specific smartphone that you are able to download the application. So remember in class, I asked, please go up and read about the different industrial revolutions, right? Your fifth industrial revolution talks about artificial intelligence. So where robots, or you get, for example, your chatbot. So when you go for perhaps a specific website, you will see a pop-up box and it's called a chat box. And it says, good evening, how can I help you? And you would type something and perhaps it would then refer you to maybe the frequently asked questions on the website that speaks to delivery, etc., etc. So I would encourage you to please go and read in depth in terms of the information. As I said, there's a lot of information out there, but I felt that it's necessary to just ensure that we were aligned in terms of what we needed to cover in class and what we missed out, because it was a little bit, last week we dealt with a lot, if I can put it that way, in terms of understanding where we are, where we need to get to, and things like that. So I would suggest that you need to go through and have a look at what was covered and do additional research. So what we're going to do today is we are going to just look at the second section that I think is very important that we need to cover in terms, and then we'll move to week 9. Now, here's the thing that I want to, before we continue, We had in class last week four students. One of our students that was present for class mentioned to me on Tuesday that students do not want to listen to recordings when the lectures, when there is not a lecture, right? They want, in that instance, they wanted the face-to-face lecturing as opposed to a recorded lecture. Now, here is the thing, is that the one student that mentioned this in class was present. The other four, which she said, it's not all four of you that were not there, but some of you have mentioned. Now, here is the thing, is that there is on Cole Campus, and at the end of each roadmap, the contact details. You have my email, you have my mobile number. We are on a WhatsApp group. Any questions that you have or any material that you are struggling with, please come directly to me and ask me. We had a case where last week for your formative assessment 1, I was told that students approached the public relations 1 lecturer to get information in terms of the formative assessment. Did it help you? Only your marks will be a clear reflection of that. If I brief in and I'm teaching you in PR2, kindly note that unless you have exhausted all options to get hold of me, that you can then approach, you need to actually approach Jackie, right, or Taryn from the Arcadia campus. And this has never been the case. So from day 1, I've indicated, guys, we have a WhatsApp group for PR2 students. So for those of you who approached the lecture from PR1, I hope it helped for your assignments and that you were able to do well in them. So your assignments have been marked to give you some feedback. It is currently being moderated, and I'm not sure exactly when your marks will be released. So if there is a recorded lecture, what you need to do is you need to match that with the information in your textbooks. I say textbooks because we are using 2 textbooks now. And you need to look at your roadmap and tie that in. If at the end of that, after listening to the recording, please note if you still don't understand certain aspects of the work, you need to reach out to me, otherwise I don't know. So for those students who say, you know what, face-to-face, last week, only 4 students attended out of the 8. So yeah. And if you have any more challenges, I want you to come directly to me as opposed to going and discussing it with your fellow. You can discuss it with your fellow classmates, but if they're able to help you get through and navigate and understand the material, all well and good. But your number 1 go-to should be me. And I've emphasized this and in length to all students. Right. What we're going to do is quickly cover, there's different kind of media. So we have earned media, owned media, post-digital age, and shovelware. These are terms that you will find in your textbook. Remember the Connect Writing for Online Audiences. You go and you're going to read through it. And you also have paid media. So you need to be able to understand what is earned media. So it's publicity gained through promotional efforts, not paid for when a brand is talked about, consumers or brand related content is shared online. So that is earned media. Owned media is where the media created is or owned by the brand. Paid media. So what I would suggest is please read up in your textbook in order to get a better understanding. Now, here is what I'm going to cover in terms of what is linked to what was discussed earlier on this, is the overview of the digital landscape in Africa. I need to just re-emphasize this, guys, because it seems like it is a misunderstanding. Please don't confuse media, traditional media, with social media. They are not the same thing, right? So you have traditional media, which is your print, online, and broadcast. And then secondly, you have social media. Do not confuse them as being the same. So in order to grow the value of a brand online and to craft truly engaging content for a converged media strategy, it is important to first understand the digital context in Africa and the trends that are shaping it with specific reference to key markets on the continents. Now, another thing that I normally ask students at the beginning of class, whether it's online or face-to-face, what is happening in the news today? As public relations practitioners, some of the things we need to do is we need to read widely. When I mean read widely, what is it that I mean, or what am I saying? It means to be able to read what is happening in the news, but more importantly is also to read what are the digital trends that are being adopted in 2023. So if you Google every single year, you will see in public relations or the digital trends, there's new trends for each year. So I would encourage you to go and do some research on what are some of the new public relations trends in 2023. What are the new digital trends in 2023? So Africa, right? The African continent has 362 million internet users, 170 million active social media users, and 150 million active mobile social media users as of, that's in 2016. That amount, looking at it now, we are in 2023, is probably quite substantial. Remember, when phones, the industry, especially with regards to entry-level smartphones, has become very competitive, which means when it becomes competitive, prices generally drop because the companies want business, and based on their pricing, they would want to get more customers. Now, in terms of the stats, you can actually go and have a look. So for example, if you look at Facebook, right, it has 29.5 million users in 2022, right? When compared to 2021, when there were only 25 million Facebook users. Now, this is important. Why is it important? Because when you are putting together your public relations plans, and under activities, if you want to indicate that you are going to make use of a specific social media, you would need to understand which has the highest reach, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whatever the case may be. Now, very important point that I need to emphasize to you is that when you use Instagram as a social media, please understand, go through and do some research. For example, what is YouTube used for? Why would you use YouTube in a specific campaign? Even Twitter. Why is it that we would have a Twitter platform where we post messages? Instagram, you need to indicate if you are using Instagram, is it an influencer that you're using, right? An influencer that you are making use of as part of your campaign? There are many terminology I've seen in the assignments, like influencer marketing. we talking public relations, but we are doing influencer marketing. Now, remember the very first class, I think it was the first and second class that we had, right? One of the things we did was we looked at what are the definitions of public relations, marketing, and advertising. Please go and have a refresher in terms of your notes that you've made in class for those who attended, and also in terms of the material that is available, and have a look at your handbook, the orange one that gives you, it clearly defines the three definitions. They are not exactly the same, however, they may be linked in some way or the other. So I am not going to go into detail here. You can read up on this if you have not already done so. It tells you things like your mobile messaging channels, etc., etc. The Protection of Personal Information Act was launched or became, it was legislated in July 2021, right? So when you do any kind of surveys or polls or things like that, remember when you enter a website, it asks you if you want to accept the cookies or reject it or be selective in terms of it. Now, those cookies, what they're called, it's not biscuits, by the way, guys. It is these little, if I can call them algorithms or whatever, to track your geographic location. So if they know you are based in Arcadia, then they would use that information to segment their target audience in terms of the kind of messaging and marketing that they do. So someone who's based in Arcadia, there's a store down the road that sells specific things. The advert might pop up when you are on Google or on YouTube to purchase things or their specials or specific products, etc., that's being sold there. If you are in Roodepoort or Honeydew, it would do the same. It also tracks the kind of information that you are looking at the website. So please be cognizant of the fact that the POPI Act is extremely important. Please do some research around it and look at what are the guidelines in terms of the do's and don'ts. There's also what we call USSD codes, right? It's called unstructured supplementary service data. Now, when you are on your mobile phone and you want to access self-service options, for example, if you are a Vodacom user, and I stand to be corrected, you dial, it's an asterisk, 111 hash, and enter, and it brings up a self-service options where you can click to see how much data you've got left, how much airtime you've got left, and what is your, if you are not on prepaid, what is your current account that is going to be due at the end of the month. So this has been strongly adopted. It's not strongly adopted in South Africa, but used for banking in Kenya and other parts of Africa more successfully. That's the, this is specifically the asterisk 11 hash, right? That there's some things that when they're implemented in one country may not work necessarily for another country because it's not a one size fits all. If you look at the case of MTM and them entering into the Nigerian market, what had happened is MTN thought a service and an offering that was very well received and was doing exceptionally well in South Africa was going to work in the Nigerian market, and it didn't. So MTN had to relook and rethink at their strategy and then forge ahead in terms of what is it that they need to actually implement in that market that is a need to that specific customer or consumer. Okay, so this is briefly what we touched on. And let us now, so guys, if there's any questions relating to what we've covered and what we're going to cover now. Tomorrow in class at 12:10, when you dial in, please ensure that you come prepared with questions. Firstly, regarding to formative assessment 2, for those who attended class and those who didn't. So those who didn't attend class, you would have gone through the briefing document. You would have connected with, by now you should have actually connected with your colleague, right? In terms of your syndicate, discussed and brainstorm about the actual assignment and how are you guys going to approach it. These are skills. The reason why we're doing a syndicate assignment is to build up skills in terms of when you go into the real world, the working world, I mean the working environment, you are going to have to work with different kinds of individuals with different personalities, and you're going to work on projects together. So let us look at this week, specifically week 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the new textbook meaning Connect Writing for Online Audiences. So remember, every time you have class, you're going to have both your textbooks with you. We're going to continue with the new textbook and complete chapter 2 and start with chapter 3. The goal in being online is to deliver a superior, holistic customer experience online and offline. Brands often struggle to deliver this as online customers demand high levels of service. We attempt to deliver this experience through converged media, which is when 2 or more media types work in conjunction to meet our communication objectives. Let's read that again. We attempt to deliver this experience through converged media. Converged media is when 2 or more media types work in conjunction to meet our communication objectives. Organizations must consider their digital persona and the kind of impression they seek to make on their audience. There needs to be well-articulated strategies that balance brand management with the demands of the digital environment. As corporations and other organizations adopted contemporary digital media, it became difficult to maintain a hierarchical and formal tone of communication. Through social media, audiences could now have direct access to the organization, leading to a more formal, informal, dialogic tone. So social media like your Twitter, Facebook, etc., it gives it a more informal tone, especially if you look at Facebook. When a company is engaging with customers, right? It's more informal. This new and increasingly necessary unscripted approach led to the need for a new character and style of communication with audiences in the digital environment. So the way you would write a press release is different to the way you would communicate on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram for that matter, right? The whole communication style is completely different. Communication through digital platforms is known as its digital persona. So in chapter 3, we discussed how organizations develop an online profile and persona. So there's a number of outcomes for this week's lectures. It's to understand the concept of converged media, to be familiar with the POEM approach, and we'll unpack that as we get to that section. Understanding how writing for social media is different from formal business writing, like I've mentioned with the press release. Be familiar with the professional roles in digital media, developing a channel appropriate profile and persona, how to compile an online profile, distinguish between brand voice and brand tone when communicating on social media, use a digital persona to communicate, determining the functions of an online profile and how to develop it, understand aspects appropriate for good social media bio, understand the difference between an offline business profile and the social media profile. Now, normally I would ask you at the start of a new week, which this week is week 9, guys, have you read the roadmap for this week? So this is the roadmap. Remember, it gets uploaded. So week 10's roadmap. So next week is week 10. And we will then have face-to-face classes, right? It normally will get uploaded to Cole Campus either on a Thursday or on a Friday, but in all probability, it will be uploaded to Cole Campus on the Thursday. What you need to do is before class, so this week is week 9. What you're going to do this week is when the roadmap for week 10 becomes available on Cole Campus, you need to read this roadmap, and then if you scroll down, like I'm showing you on the screen, you need to then read chapter 2 of the new textbook, Connect Writing for Online Audiences, chapter 3 of the new textbook, Connect for Writing for Online Audiences. They have videos which I may play in class, but they are very, very important. And you will see on every single roadmap at the bottom, you will find my details here. So even if I am recording this lecture and if you are struggling with anything, you have my email and you have my mobile number. So there is no excuse around that you don't know what to do, you don't understand anything. Now, this lecture is going to be, I'm going to send you the link tonight, which is Monday evening, the 24th of April, 2023. And tomorrow in class, you should have read already chapter 2 and 3 of the new textbook, the Connect Writing for Online Audiences. Guys, I'm going to quickly switch on the light so that it's getting quite dark in here. There have been instances where students have mentioned, I remember there's some of the material that you didn't understand. I think it was Mercy at one stage mentioned, I don't fully understand research. So if you remember what I did for the purposes, not just for me, but not just for, sorry, not me, not only for the purpose of one student, for everyone, what we did is we had a debrief of exactly the research chapter. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the presentation. That I need to share on my screen, which is going to come up now. Okay, so chapter 2 of the new textbook, we get into what we call media convergence, right? Now, converged media, like we mentioned in the roadmap, literally means where two or more media types work in conjunction to meet a business or communication objective. Media types, so very important that I want to stress is objectives. Now, you're going to find in your formative, just on a sidebar or a side note, in your formative assessment 2, part of the PRISA 7-step plan that you will be required to do, step 2 has what we call the objectives element of it. Now, guys, there's only one way to write objectives, that is in the SMART format. SMART format means that when you write an objective, it must be specific, measurable, attainable or achievable, realistic, and it must have a timeline or time frame to it. That is what SMART means. Please ensure that you are fully aligned with that and that you can understand it, because that is what's going to be required of FA2. So media types are broadly classified as paid, owned, or earned media. That is the acronym POEM, right? The objective of converged media is to deliver superior holistic customer experience online and offline. Remember when we spoke of converged media, it's when two or more, so anything more than two types of media are used at the same time, right, in order to meet a specific objective, be it a business objective or be it a communication objective, but ultimately it's more than two types of media, right? So when we're saying that the objective of converged media is to deliver superior, holistic customer experience online and offline, it means that basically you want to be able to get a bigger reach in terms of accessing or connecting, engaging with the customer or consumer. Brands often struggle to fulfill this experience as online customers demand high levels of service, right? So if you look at online customers, demand is in terms of the customer level or customer service is extremely high. Anytime that we receive poor service, and if you look at it in today's times, right? If we receive bad service from a specific store or a brand, what do? There's a lot of customers, not everyone does this, but a lot of customers immediately go to Facebook or Twitter and say, this is the worst experience that they've had with an organization because their service is shocking. Now, just to give you an understanding and to connect the dots for you, Chapter 2 is on page 13 of your new textbook. When I say new textbook, it means Connect Writing for Online Audiences, not the orange textbook, it's the other one. So the converged media approach allows brands to tackle these issues to reach the consumer. So in as much as we go through slides in class, just to give you, to help you with the your learning journey and to make this process a bit seamless for you. How your learning journey is going to work is that there are a number of variables that need to be in place for you to actually learn. So in as much as I can present these slides to you, the only way that you are going to learn is if you go through the roadmap, read what are the learning outcomes that you need to achieve by the end of Wednesday, right? When we are done with classes, right? Is you need to look at the roadmap. You need to read the relevant chapters in your textbook. You need to do additional reading. And there are some cases where you have got to do exercises and homework. So the one thing is that we need to be very cognizant of is the fact that we need to have engagement. It's not just me presenting you with slides with information. There's no way on this planet that you are going to absorb everything. We take certain specific information, and what we do is we teach that in class. The onus is upon you to actually do the reading of the textbook, right? So if you look on page 14 of the textbook, I think it's towards the second half of the page. In a gray block, it's called objectives. After completing this chapter, you should be able to do, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 points that you are going to have to do as homework. So please be mindful of that. That is chapter 2. There is going to be some group work, and we're going to try and get you to start engaging a bit more, whether it's on Teams or whether it's face-to-face. Okay. So and also taking notes in class is equally important, because that is your view in terms of how you are capturing the information and understanding it. When brands create a 360 view of how, when, where, and why consumers interact with them, they can then design solutions that resonate with the customer and meet key business outcomes. So what are we saying here when we say a 360 view? It's like the red circle on the top right-hand side. What we want to do is we look at each platform, and this is pretty much relevant to your formative assessment too. If you are going to do a press release, are you going to send the press release to the radio station? No, you won't. You are going to send this to journalists who you're going to pitch this to, and then you're going to send it to them. So hopefully they will actually, they may conduct an interview with one person or with you if you are the spokesperson, and then they will publish the story as an editorial. You cannot send a press release to a radio station. The reason why I'm specifically mentioning this is what I saw come through in the assignments. So you need to understand Facebook. What is the type of messaging that is being put on Facebook? What are the kind of the messages, or what are consumers talking about specifically on Facebook, right? Other platforms, right? Whether it's competitions, for example. What is the response, and what are the kind of competitions that customers or consumers will enter, etc., etc. So that is what the 360 view is. Even on Twitter, what are the messages that customers are posting on, for example, Twitter? So a converged media strategy uses various overlaps, combinations, and configurations of the 3 media types: paid, owned, earned media, to solve a brand's challenges. Now, with the radio station, like the example I made just now, is that you would not send a press release to a radio station. You would repackage that, because in the information that you're going to share with the station manager, it's going to be written differently as you would write it in a press release. Perhaps a lot of the information that's in the press release you can keep, but it's got to be done in a different format, not so much so as a press release. Remember, a press release has one editorial angle. Do not create 5 different messages and incorporate it in your press release. The reason I'm mentioning this is because for your FA2, you need to put together a press release. So what you would need to do is you would need to actually look at the information in there and then decide how is it that you're going to package it, right? Plus, if you've got 5 different messages that you've created, because one of the 7 steps includes messaging, I think please go and research, read your textbook, chapter 11 of the orange textbook, and understand what an editorial angle is, right? Because you're only going to have one editorial angle in that media release, not 5 different editorial angles. I'm mentioning that because that is very, very key to formative assessment too. Now, so when we talk of paid media, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, it's a financial outlay that you're going to use to actually get the paid media. So it means that you are going to be paying for it. It is bought media, a communication channel or platform for which a brand pays a fee to place or display content. So if there is a featured article, right, and you have paid for it to be on the third page of that magazine, that would be paid media. If you've got a Coca-Cola, you work, okay, Coca-Cola, yeah, you work for AB InBev that manufactures Coca-Cola. There is a new campaign that they're running, and you go and do a billboard, right? You're going to pay to put information on that, or the company is going to charge you money, like Prime Media. They're going to charge you money for putting a billboard up with your information. Even in magazines, when you look at any magazine, Cosmopolitan, GQ, whatever magazine that you read, even you will see there are full-page, half-page adverts. That is paid media. Radio or TV adverts, blog posts written by paid influencers, promoted social media posts. So on social media, you can pay for your posts to be promoted. So when you're on social media, you might find adverts popping up, right? People have paid for that. You have an influencer that you know is going to be good. It's a beauty soap that a company has manufactured. You are going to pay an influencer to be affiliated with that specific brand of soap, right? Because this person has a media following of 50 million, right? Or there are blog posts where you are going to pay people to write a blog on a specific thing, right? And that will be then published. Now, there are some people who do blogging as a career and they make lots of money. But please be forewarned that if you are embarking on that journey and you want to be a blogger and be paid for it, make sure you know your stuff. When I say know your stuff, is that it entails research. So a company has approached a blogger and they've paid them and they want them to write a post on this and send out a specific message that is targeted at a specific stakeholder or stakeholders, right? That blogger is going to research the company as well, and they're going to conduct all of that, right? So they just don't go sit there and they start writing. The role of paid media is to drive traffic to the brand's owned media or to amplify earned media. So if it's on Facebook, if you've got a paid advert that you have on Facebook, you want people to click on that advert. So when they go into that advert, it takes them through to a specific page. On YouTube, you have a number of paid sort of media. So when you click on that, it takes you through to a website. So the next time you are on social media or any platform, look at what you think is editorial and look at what you think is paid media or owned media or whatever the case may be. So what is owned media? It's a communication platform or instrument or channel that is directly created, owned, moderated, and maintained by a brand. It's a content asset. The purpose is to curate accurate, detailed information about different aspects of the brand. Fully owned, microsite, online retail store, emailed newsletters, signage, and branded apps. So a Checkers 6060 is a branded app. They are fully owned by Checkers 6060. But mind you, there's and I don't know how many of you actually know this. So Checkers 6060, for those who don't know, is an app that was created. So Checkers 6060 was launched in November 2019. And what had happened, it was just prior, and it was coincidental, that COVID-19 hit South Africa full force in March 2020 of that year, right? So this allows you to go onto an app, a mobile app, and you literally order whatever you want. Checker 6060 has gone a bit fancy in the sense that they have virtual aisles in some cases. So you can literally have a look, a virtual tour of an aisle, and then you can decide what products you want to put in your shopping basket. And those groceries then get delivered to your door. The app, the algorithm for the Checker 6060 app was actually, and this is giving you motivation, purely for motivation purposes, and secondly, for information purposes, it's good to know. So, a 23-year-old student from from Wits University, right? She was 23 at the time. She was in the course of her studies doing some research on how to solve the issue of a I think it's like a mobile salesman or something, if I can remember. And what she did is she managed to create the algorithm for Checker 6060. She's today the owner of her own company. And you can guess, yes, she's made lots of money. A 23-year-old student came up with a brilliant idea because through her research in terms of what she was studying, she conducted additional research and she created a algorithm for Checker 60. And that is the technology that's underpinned by the mobile app for Checker 6060, right? So that is would be an asset. So Checker 6060 owns that mobile application and they can then control what kind of information, what kind of specials appear, etc., etc. So even like emailed newsletters that you receive, right? That narrative in terms of the content is controlled by the company. So when you sign up to receive mailing letters from companies, you receive the newsletter, that narrative is controlled by that company. Partially owned media. Social media because the community follow based on mutual admiration and love for the brand and can post without permission. So when we say partially owned, if a company goes and creates a YouTube channel, they can then post videos in terms of adverts and things like that, but they don't own YouTube. The channel is what they actually through which they generate content, but they don't own YouTube. They own the YouTube channel in the sense that whatever content is generated is done so through the company. Earned media. Publicity gained through promotional efforts, but not paid for. If a brand is talked about by consumers or brand-related content is shared offline, right? The conversations consumers have about brands online can be positive or negative. Then you have ratings and reviews, sharing with other users. So you will see where a company does, they have like Sweep South is a service where you can book for a domestic professional to come through to your home by the Sweep South app, right? And what would happen then is once the professional is done for the day, as soon as they leave your home, right, then you'll get a pop-up that says, give the rating and review, like the rating of the professional that came through to your home, and you would give them 4 stars or 5 stars. And then they do what we call open-ended questions, like if you were happy with the service, what is it specifically that you were happy about that service? So the professional arrived 15 minutes before time. They actually stayed later than they were supposed. So they were supposed to leave at 5, but they left at 5:15 to ensure that everything that they needed to do was completed. So that is what you called earned media. And it's even ratings on website. You see they have a 5-star rating. You know, TripAdvisor has a rating of companies that or hotels or establishments accommodation that people have gone and booked those sort of accommodation before and what their experience was. So there is a place on TripAdvisor where you can assess this particular accommodation has 5 stars. People have given it a rating of 5 out of 5, and the ratings are excellent. As opposed to um, a self-catering place that has 1 star and people were not happy with it. You would probably go and book in that accommodation that has 5 out of 5 and has 50 reviews that are all good, right? So that way, a company earns its earned media. They did not pay for it, but because of the consumers going and booking through the accommodation, they then go through and well, get the earned media. Right, so what we're going to look at now is integrating owned, earned, and paid media. Remember we said we want to adopt a 360-degree approach. And the reason we want to apply the 360 degree approach is that you want to have a holistic. And when we talk holistic, we want to be able to close the gaps between all the areas where we're not able to reach customers in terms of the way we communicate. Something that's published in, for example, the Cosmopolitan magazine, maybe there's some women that just don't read Cosmopolitan. I, for one, I don't know when was the last time I read Cosmopolitan. Not that there's anything wrong with Cosmopolitan. I access information differently, right? So this company now wants to integrate owned, earned, and paid media for that purpose simply. A converged media strategy focuses on mixing these different media types to create new and better ways of engaging and connecting with customers. A brand has an enormous task to ensure consistency of messaging and maintaining open lines of communication between internal staff and external partners. Now, we need to think of organizations as customer-centric. So when we say customer-centric, for Boston Media House, the focus is student-centric. That means the focus is on the student, for the student to get the best quality education, right? So that when you leave after 3 years and you've got your certification, that you are a well-rounded individual in terms of the information and the institutional and the academic knowledge to go out into the working world and to be successful, right? So it is closing those gaps in terms of ensuring that we reach all our stakeholders as opposed to only some and not the others. Now, there's critical steps that need to be followed in order for a converged media strategy to be successful. Is it something that you just go and think, right, this is what we're going to do? And you just go and you do paid media, you say, okay, this is going to be earned media, this is going to be owned media. No. Now, there's 3 critical elements that I've always mentioned throughout this teaching, our engagements through teaching. There's 3 aspects that you always have to bear in mind that is critical to anything you do. And that's going to be critical for your FA2. The first one is research, research, research. Please don't embark on something if you don't have or you're not equipped with all the knowledge that is necessary for you to succeed, right? The second is planning. You need to plan if you're doing a converged media strategy. You need to plan. What kind of communication is going to go out when? Are you going to do all the communication at one go, right? Or you're going to stagger it? And then your monitoring and evaluation speaks to statistics. So the different kind of converged media that you've used in your strategy, what is the effect and what has been the result of this converged media strategy. So you need to conduct period analysis. You need to see what is and what is not working for the brand. Also, in this instance, yes, it is very good to track and review your competitors. Now, in some instances, you think, how the hell am I? Okay, hell shouldn't be used here in class, right? I say that with all due respect. Why in the world would I, or how am I going to be able to track and review my competitors? Remember, competitors, they keep their cards very close to them, which means they do not necessarily want to share with the competitor what is it that they're doing and what they're doing well, because then it's going to, if another competitor has to find out what is it that they're doing and because they're doing so well and implement that, there's a possibility that they may take up some of their market share based on the customers that change to another brand. Now, to make life simple, there are market research companies out there that do tracking and reviewing of competitors for you. Obviously, it's a paid service, so you would need to pay them for that. You would give them a brief and say, I am in the academic space, right? I want to track all of Boston Media House's competitors to see what they're doing right and what they're doing well and where they're succeeding. Where are they being the media coverage? Where are they receiving the most media coverage? And then you compare apples to apples, right? Or an orange with an orange. So in the academic space, would you necessarily go and compare Boston Media House to a university as such? Remember, higher learning institutions, they vary. So you've got to be able to identify who are your competitors, because how are you able to distinguish how you can compare apples with apples? Sorry, I'm saying apples with apples because that's probably the easiest analogy, means the same with the same you're comparing. You need to look at Boston Media House. What is the qualifications and the studies that they are offering to students, and compare it with another higher learning institution that offer very similar sort of academic courses and studies. So you would do that, right? Create an enabling organizational structure that requires flexibility and to avoid duplication, which means that all departments therefore need to collaborate. So this is where public relations is very integral, is that you need to be able to communicate and work in cross-functional teams to ensure that what messaging is being promoted, right, on a specific platform is not duplicated by another division, right? So that is very important, collaboration and cross-functional. So when I say cross-functional teams, is where the public relations person works and is involved in like planning meetings or team meetings with the marketing team, with the HR team, etc. So create multi-skilled agile teams, different skill sets and different abilities. Now, if you've not heard of the word agile before, AGILE, please go and research it. Agile means the ability, in my just my simplest version, if I can explain it to you, it's the ability to adapt to changing environments or changing circumstances. Now, if you look at the COVID-19 pandemic, what happened? There were many companies that closed down. There were many companies that were agile and said, let us at a very quick pace change our strategy. So there were many companies that went online and began with e-commerce channels. where people could go online, not necessarily on an app. So this is where we talk about the 360. So some have, for example, a mobile app that you can log on to. Other companies like Take a Lot, which already had an e-commerce platform where you could order on, you go to their website, you log in with your profile, and you were able to order items on your laptop or your desktop and have it delivered to you. So companies, so that is what agile means, is you need to create multi-skilled agile teams with different skill sets and different abilities. Now, this is the one thing that as you grow and in your career, you're going to understand that the workplace can be very competitive. So individuals always want to be great and they want to do great. They want to be recognized with it. But if you have 5 different people with different skill sets and abilities, and the one is it's excellent in finance, the other is excellent in writing, etc., etc., you will have a solid team that is able to assist you. One person is brilliant at social media. So it's about working together towards a common goal. And that is when the agile teams are highly successful, because they have a different skill set for each individual who's part of the team. And hence they are able to achieve their objectives much more easily, as opposed to a team that has conflict in it and they cannot move forward. Create a rapid content hub, shareable content that is instantly recognizable. So a lot of companies do this with social media, where they have, because you may think, jeepers, there's someone sitting there and they come up with content every day. No, what they do is they have a library of content that's created. So they have content that's probably created for 2 weeks, that is generic, that is informative, that gives you an insight about the product and its benefits. So we are entering the winter season now. So now you will see there'll be information relating to, for example, Corenza C or Immuenza, which is an immune system booster, to say this, and then they may combine it with during winter, you know, you eat healthy and you still exercise and you do this and this, and it's tied in with that. Many of you may not know this, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, in 2020 specifically, I'm talking about, not sure if you knew this, but there was almost a non-existent cold and flu season. South Africa literally skipped a cold and flu season in the winter of 2020. And if you sit and think about it very carefully, why did this occur, right? The reason for it was people were social distancing during the hard lockdowns, especially in 2020. People remained indoors. People even if they did go to the stores, they were sanitizing and doing proper hand washing, etc., etc. People had masks on whenever they left their homes, right? So hence the likelihood of transmission of germs and diseases was minimal. So 2020 saw the lowest, or they saw almost a non-existent cold and flu season. So monitor, measure, optimize social listening. Now, social listening is linked to something very important. It's what's being said out there in the public domain, whether it's negative, positive. That is what social listening is called. So, guys, that is an hour and a half gone. So it's time for me to wrap up. What I am going to do is tomorrow in class, because what I'm going to do now is as soon as I stop recording this, I'm going to upload it and I'm going to share it, the link, tonight in the next half an hour on the WhatsApp group. for everyone to access. Tomorrow, when we log on MS Teams live at 12:10 for our second session, please make sure that you've listened to this video, because we're going to have a discussion, and please bring all your questions to class tomorrow online. All your questions that you have on Formative Assessment 1, on the material that we are covering, on the new textbook that you have questions on, any questions or anything you're not understanding, and I want feedback on how the syndicates are going. So please be forewarned that one of the things we're going to cover in class tomorrow is how are the syndicates going? How are you guys doing? How are you progressing with Formative Assessment 2? So guys, I am going to stop the recording. Please have a good evening, and I will be connected at 12:10 tomorrow for the second session of PR2 of week 9, which is Tuesday the 25th of April. So please be connected on the Teams link, which is available on Cole Campus. I will be logged on live tomorrow at 12:10. So guys, have a good evening, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.